oh, you have a car that's in your inventory online, but it's not sitting on the ground, there's $53,800 every single day. So there's 16 of these son of a guns out there. Some have to do with financing, some have to do with bait and switch and all kinds of other things. So very challenging again. And so think about this, dealers. If you're with a partner that doesn't have a commitment to compliance, I just want you to keep this in mind. Please call the FTC right now and ask them, if my agency makes a mistake, can I say, hey, it's their fault? Nope, you own it. What if it's my OEM? You own it. What if it's my marketing director? You own it. There is no hall passes. So you've got to be very careful in choosing partners that would rather tell you what you need to hear than what you want to hear.
Welcome to Auto Titans. I'm Jamie Butters with Diana Lee, CEO of Constellation. Diana, it's been a hot summer, but today's forecast is showing a wisdom front blowing our way from out of Oregon. Are you ready for this?
I am. God. And I have to tell you, I'm super excited about our guest. I've known him for a long time and is really one of the smartest auto titans that I can even think of.
David Spisak is a consultant, a podcaster, an entrepreneur, CEO
founder
of Disruptive Growth Solutions. That's right. A man with more than 4 decades of experience in and around auto retail. David, welcome to Auto Titans.
It's a pleasure to be here, Jamie. Thank you for having me. And Diana, it's always great to be with you, whether it's in person or virtual. And thank you for the kind words. I think it's another way of saying he's old.
No.
That's absolutely, when I describe my career in journalism, it comes off as, yes, I might be the oldest guy in the room. And that's okay. Yeah, we're glad to have you. You talk to so many dealers. You're so plugged in. I'm wondering, what do you see as the biggest issue, the biggest headache that dealers are facing now?
I think there's a couple that come to mind. And there's really, Jamie, as you know, there's no shortage. Honestly, there's a lot of pain points, even more so depending on where you're located geographically and what franchise you have for that matter. But for all dealers, I will tell you, here's a couple of them. One is the transformation that's happening, this seismic shift in marketing. And some dealers know about it and they're on the leading edge, and many don't. And they're probably going to find out too late, sadly. The second one I will say is the tech stack. Most dealers have not audited their tech stack since before COVID-19. And while we all readily can admit this business has changed dramatically, if you could imagine, it's like you and I all using our same Windows 95 and our same laptop that weighed 40 pounds from 20 years ago and trying to compete with people today. So the tech stack, and the offshoot of that, of course, is AI. There's a lot of people running to AI, and a lot of them are not even taking the time to figure out who the heck they're working with, number one. Number two, what is AI actually going to do for them? You know, what is it going to fix? What decisions is it going to make? And nor are they considering kind of the dark sides of AI when it comes to legal ramifications, data ramifications. And I've been saying, if you think 2 decades or 3 decades of disparate system, third-party solutions has been a pain, try doing third-party solutions with AI. It's a nightmare. So I think there's a lot of pain points for people to try to figure out.
You know, Diana and I have been talking about this all year. So many dealers are kind of overwhelmed with AI. They don't know if they're supposed to do everything with AI. Should they only use what their vendors bring them? How do you advise them to think about artificial intelligence and how to implement it?
Some dealer groups that also build their own AI infrastructure and their conversational AI, they have names for them out there as well. So there's a big different gap of people who aren't using it at all the way to we're going to actually build our own infrastructure, our own AI systems in place with our own data sets. So what are you seeing, David?
I think it's dangerous. I think there's great hope in it, but I do think that anytime somebody endeavors to go into technology, I think more times than not, and you've lived this, they massively underestimate the undertaking. They massively underestimate the cost. They massively understate. They think about the solution and what I'm going to fix. They don't think about the normalization of data, the hygienization of data, the management of data, the security of data. You know, think about this, guys, that the vast majority of dealers only don't even have their own IT person on staff. They don't even have an IT person in the year 2026. They have admins that are parts managers or controllers. They use third party, outsource their IT. They don't even have that. Guys, if you don't have IT and you don't have an AI architect that's going to help you manage through things like this, any of us that build software, one of the chief people we have is a designer and one is an architect. And that's incredibly important. So if you don't have that, I think there's a lot of danger. Number two, the number of dealers I hear where they're so excited and they say, oh, yeah, I got my guys are vibe coding. Okay, so you have your own hackers. That's amazing that you're raising your own hackers. It's incredible. And they're all tapping into your data. And when you vibe code, as you guys well know, that's not necessarily scalable. It's not defensible. It's not protectable. You don't have security layers. So, I mean, those things are dangerous. And just a couple of weeks ago, I was with a big dealer group and they said, I said, hey, are you using AI solutions? Oh, yeah, absolutely. I said, well, which one? They said, oh, we take all of our leads and we upload them to ChatGPT and it scores our leads and it gives us scripts. And I said, great, you just violated the GLB, Graham-Leach-Bliley Act at the tune of $35,000 a pop, right? Please stop doing that. So I think that, number one, I get it. When people are doing that, they're tired of buying solutions and they think, well, I'm just going to create my own. But there's just a lot more to it. And frankly, if they don't have a data lake and they don't have a legitimate development team and they don't have a legitimate cybersecurity team, it has potential, but it's rife with challenges.
As you mentioned, the shopping journey has changed because of AI. So many customers, even if they go to Google, they might look more at the AI answer than at the actual search answers, or they just do their shopping, through chat or Claude or something else. And they say, what's the best vehicle? What's the best dealer? How should dealers try to address that issue?
This is why what you said earlier, Jamie, is the perfect word, overwhelmed. How would you not be overwhelmed right now? It is so much more complex, so much more complicated. So just consider this. Okay, you've been doing your same marketing, and I don't know, Diana, you've heard this. How many times are we hearing where I'm not getting the same traffic? I'm not getting the same leads. We're doing the same marketing. You just answered your own question, bro. You're doing the same marketing, and that's why you're not getting the same. Because while you're doing that and thinking the world hasn't shifted, you have between 30 and 40% of people relying, not just tapping, but sticking their toes in the water. They're relying on ChatGPT or Claude, but it's predominantly ChatGPT and Gemini. And ChatGPT is still by far leading the parade here. But when you have 30 to 40%, and when you get into Gen Z, you're getting into 80%. And if you ask all people that are shopping, 80% are using AI at some point in their search. Now consider this. Your website has probably not necessarily been optimized for AI. Your website doesn't have the schemas that are necessary so the AI can even see what the heck you'd like it to read and serve up. In addition to that, it doesn't care about the money you've spent on SEM. It could care less. It sees that as hacking and cheating. All that means is that you paid the judges off in your own beauty contest to say, hey, pick me. Okay, but you didn't earn that title. So it's like you bought the NBA championship. You didn't earn your way to it. So what AI search cares about is it's caring about frequency. It's caring about generative engine optimization content. It's caring about authority. It's caring about credibility. It's caring about reviews. It's so smart that when I recently audited a store, a big Chevy store, they had 5,000 reviews, okay? And the review score, Jamie, was a 4.6. Sounds good. But yet it found that there was over 80 business BBB complaints that were open. And so it came back and said, no, they're stuffing the ballot box. It's that smart. right? So here's the thing. You may not realize as a store that because you're still doing the old school advertising, that you're becoming less and less visible. But not only that, less and less authoritative. I can't tell you how many people or stores I go into and I say, let me check out your stores. I just did this for a store just last week, a group of stores, and they were the third or fourth choice. And I said I live where they were located. That's not good. So when you think about this, if they're not moving to content publishing, if they haven't learned how to proliferate content, if they haven't figured out how to get in line with social, and guys, social's what, 10 plus, no, longer than that, almost 20 years old. And so email, when it came out, took 10 years for full adoption. If you didn't want to jump into email the first 4 or 5 years, I'm going to see if it sticks. Okay. E-commerce took 10 years for let me see this newfangled e-commerce. I'm not going to get involved. AI, here's the challenge. You want to know overwhelming? Here's your choices. Lean in or don't. And if you don't, you're on the outside looking in. I promise. And things are going to get harder by the quarter. And if you do lean in, you have to do it in a highly intelligent fashion where you're relying on partners like what Diana does, right? You have this big team where you're vetting things out and you've got properly created platforms and they've been vetted, they've been tested. If you don't do that and you go with somebody who says, I have the latest, greatest thing, man, oh man, you may not have any idea what you're about to inflict to your store. It's very complicated.
David, it's even more complicated because of FTC, right? I mean, people really are even scared about going to jail. And I have to tell you, it gets more and more complicated. I just heard that you can't advertise a car in transit anymore. Before, you could actually use a VIN, but it cannot be an in-transit vehicle when you're actually putting the ad out there. I have dealers, which make me crazy. Oh, I use ChatGPT to have two people holding hands, and why can't you do that too? Well, is it FTC compliant? Is it VIN specific? Is it offer specific? Is it based on all the iterations that you need based on the sizes?
Yeah, so think about this. So you have third-party lead aggregators, right? You got Car Gurus, you got
Yeah.
Cars.com, you got TrueCar, you got Edmunds, right? You have all of these. So Jamie, those have long been, those are lead providers and they are a syndication layer. Okay. You have to syndicate your inventory out to those to get them, but they're no longer just a syndication layer. They're now a compliance layer. They're now an evidence layer. So what happens and what you put on third party platforms lives in infinitum. That's permanent. It doesn't go away. There's no 7 year. There's no evaporating after a year. It lives there forever. When you look at the Lindsay Auto Group, right? And that thing didn't happen last week and then they got fined a week later. That was a 5 year, multiple year endeavor. So there are so many people that are getting investigated now. They won't know for a while. It might be months, it might be years. And here's the problem. The problem is the FTC, when they shifted from the CARS rule to the FTC Act, there's 16 different categories. Now check this out. Let's say that you have 5 VIN numbers that you've got on a third-party solution marketplace. Those cars were sold, but you didn't take them down. They've been up there for 5 days. Well, you could get fined $53,800 per VIN for all 5 days. So that's 5 cars for 5 days is 25 boat weight, late night infomercial. There's more. You have it on 3 different third parties. That's 75 times. Now, you also have a situation to where if that car was sold and I come in 3 hours later, that is now characterized as bait and switch. So, okay, if you didn't take that car down, it's a problem. Oh, you have a car that's in your inventory online, but it's not sitting on the ground. There's $53,800 every single day. So there's 16 of these son of a guns out there. Some have to do with financing. Some have to do with bait and switch and all kinds of other things. So very challenging again. And so think about this, dealers. If you're with a partner that doesn't have a commitment to compliance, I just want you to keep this in mind. Please call the FTC right now and ask them if my agency makes a mistake, Can I say, hey, it's their fault? Nope, you own it. What if it's my OEM? You own it. What if it's my marketing director? You own it. There is no hall passes. So you've got to be very careful in choosing partners that would rather tell you what you need to hear than what you want to hear, because the right partner is going to make sure you're compliant.
It's great. It's great information. And I've known David for many, 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 many years, right, David? 8 years
Many
plus.
years.
And I know that this is going a little off topic, but I have mad respect and admiration for you, David. And the main
Thank you.
reason I do want you to tell the audience where you came from. Who were your parents and what kind of life did you have growing up? Because this, I'm
Ooh,
going to tell you, is fascinating about David Spisak. And he
it's
doesn't need another podcast. So listen
it's
up.
I shared this for the first time at an SO2 conference in May because the whole theme was You're the Human. And so I shared something in a keynote that I've never spoken about. And it's hard for me to speak about, honestly, because I'm the middle of 4 kids and grew up with in a very unfortunate situation, very hard childhood, abused. And, the best thing my father ever did was leave. And he sat us down on a bed in their bedroom, and he looked down, peered down. He was very imposing, and said, I want you to know I'm leaving you because you're cramping my style." That's literally was his parting words. And
Wow.
so my mom, God bless her, this is a different time, different place. I'm born in 1959. So my mom, of course, had to get multiple jobs. Mamas do what mamas need to do. And so
Mhm.
that's what she did. She did multiple jobs. We had no childhood to speak of. I got hundreds and hundreds of slides from when we were kids. And I looked at those slides like I had no idea who this person was. I had completely blocked. I had no childhood memories to speak of. That's how crappy things were. So long story boring. I ended up not going to college. I went into the service because I needed to get my behind straight. I had a high school counselor tell me at the ripe old age of 16 that it wasn't worth for me to pursue college. It wasn't for me. Go get a job as a vocational job. And she basically cauterized my future at the age of 16. So I lived with that chip on my shoulder and went into the service, served my country, got out, fell into a job in the car business. And in 1981, got into the car business and started then and just out hustled, out worked, out grinded everybody that I possibly could. My first job ever in automotive was driving 50,000 miles a year for a service contract company called Adesco at a time when most stores didn't have F&I. My job was to convince you, Jamie, you need an F&I department so I could sell you my credit life and disability, all that stuff. So I'm driving up and down, California every week was a requirement. And so instead of listening to the radio, I went and bought every college course I could on cassette because I had this chip on my shoulder, and I educated myself by taking college courses in the car. And so that's how that happened. One of the dealers ended up asking me, "Hey, could you please come to work for me?" I started on the floor there. He moved me ultimately into F&I a year later, and I moved from there on to the other positions that I was in. It was a rough life, but then you fast forward. I was lucky enough to choose wisely who I worked for. I interviewed them when they interviewed me. And I had some really good mentors and dealers along the way. And of all things, ended up becoming part of the 49ers organization for 12 years on their board. Was serving a lot of philanthropic boards back then in the Bay Area as well. All the hard in the beginning really worked to my favor. So it's just, I think adversity teaches you an awful lot as you go through life. But Diana has a similar story. Hard story coming over as an immigrant, child of an immigrant, and tough circumstances, and put herself through college, of all things, in a car dealership. And if it wasn't for a mentor that saw this really badass, incredibly talented human, can you imagine back when she was in that store, that you have a dealer that says, "I know you're going to college, just come in when you can." there are dealers, 99 dealers out of 100 will say, sorry, you can't work here. You got to work 6 days a week. You got to work, 50 hours or 60 hours a week. This dealer had the fortitude and the wisdom to say that, and you end up with these rock star employees. So I ended up, of all things, in this path where I ended up as president and general manager of a Mercedes-Benz store that we took from making $1 million a year to 30 million a year. And that's how things got to be very noteworthy. And from there, I thought in 2008 would be the perfect time to start a software company. Knew nothing about software, but I knew what I wanted to create. 3 months later, the pandemic hit. Was the last time I got paid for 2 years. As you're starting a company, but that company, Reverse Risk, is in about 5,000 stores today, and it's relied upon by dealers everywhere. So, like I said, I've been very fortunate. 3 times I left jobs making a lot of money to make no money, and 3 times it was the right thing to do. And the biggest thing that you learn along the way is to be very careful with who you surround yourself with, who those relationships with. So when I talk to dealers, you have to take the time to find the right, don't stop trying to fill a position. You don't want to fill a position. You want to find the person. And when you deal with a partner, more dealers are saying, I don't want vendors, I want partners. You better find the right partner who's got your best interests in mind and who has the horsepower to be able to get done what they say they're going to get done. They do what they said they're going to do. And obviously, Diana, that's what first attracted me when I first met you when you were speaking in Las Vegas. And obviously, we've known each other ever since. But life is getting hard, Jamie. This industry is bifurcated. And if you're Toyota, Lexus, Honda, BMW, Mercedes, Subaru, Porsche, even Porsche is different than it used to be. You're in a much different position than Stellantis and Ford and Audi and Lincoln and Genesis and Infiniti, Nissan. I mean, there's a lot of heart out there right now. So, I think that having those right partners is a big deal.
Early 80s, man, we had sky high interest rate. You think interest rates are high now, right? I mean, you started in this, cyclical industry at one of the hardest times possible.
You say that because people are complaining and whining about 6, 7, 8%. Like, you got to be out of your mind. I had a VA loan on my first house for 12.9. I remember 1983 when GMAC introduced 4-year financing at 12.9, and we thought it was voodoo. Like they stole money, man, because our normal interest rates were 17, 18%. Mortgages are 15, 16, 17%. And you think about hard. You had to sell a contract for 3 years. That's it. 3 years, no leasing. And if you did do leasing, you owed the money on the residual if the car took a dump, right? I leased it to you on an open-end lease. You remember that, Jamie? We ended up getting stuck for the leases. So it was a completely different world back then.
I have mad respect for you, David, because I will tell you, it doesn't matter what time of day it is, because I know you travel all over the place all the time, and you live in the West Coast. It doesn't matter. Jamie, this is incredible. I will text him. It doesn't even matter. 1 a.m., midnight, 3 a.m. In the East Coast, that man is going to actually answer in 2.5 seconds. It doesn't matter. I'm like, is his brain AI, and is it always on 24/7? He is the most responsive person I have ever met in the world. I have never met somebody so responsive, so quick, so willing to actually spend their time actually answering your question and really caring about it. David, I know it's not just about money for you. I know that because the way you treat each individual person that actually works with you or does anything with you, it is with the utmost care that you have with that person that you answer so quickly and so accurately and drop everything to actually do it.
Well, I thank you for that. I give my mom all the credit in the world for largely who I am and the fact that there are no excuses. And, she taught me years ago, even after everything that my father did, to never be a victim and to never let anybody decide who you are. You have jurisdiction on who you are, how you act, how you respond. I was homeless, by the way, going into the back of a Marriott hotel Dunphy Hotel, it was called. And I'd go into the back of the conference section and go in the bathroom and I'd shave and I'd do all this stuff and put a suit on. And nobody knew. And I never said anything to anybody about that back then. I think that when you come out of that, I think you never get over it. You just don't ever. I think it's like you hear about people that grew up in the Depression, and no matter how much money they have, they never get over it. But at the same time, I refuse to take money for people to be on my podcast. If you're on my podcast, it's because you bring value somehow to this industry, or you created something of value in this industry and people need to know about it. I refuse to advertise. I'm not going to do it because I'm not going to have pay for play. So am I an idiot? I don't know, probably, because I can make a lot of money on all of the millions of impressions I get, but I just don't want to sell myself out. And at this point in my career, that's not what's important to me, and it's not what I need. I'll do that. I get paid for consulting, advisory, and I get my technology platforms make money. And other than that, everything else is a give back to this industry I'm super passionate about. So if somebody calls me, I just had somebody this morning, hey, can you talk to this person? They're trying to buy a store. They can't figure out how to get the money. Sure. So I jumped on a Teams meeting for 30 minutes. I have zero time, none, zero. But will I take the time? Every time. If it's going to help somebody out, every time.
There is a lot of changes right now that's happening at the OEM level, David. You know, Stellantis just got new CEOs. The COO from Shift Digital just became the CEO of Ram. The CEO of Jaguar Land Rover switched over. The CEO just last week just switched over at Volkswagen Group as well. Nissan, I heard, is coming next. Like, what is going on with these OEMs? What is happening? And what is the changes with all the leadership that's happening right now?
I'm a huge believer in pursuing the non-obvious, and I'm a believer in counterintuitive thinking. I think that if you look where traditional people look, you're going to find what they find. If you want to pursue, listen to what other dealers are doing, you're going to be maybe average or above average. And if you want to figure out where this industry is going, you have to go to non-obvious choices. You have to go to elevated sources. So first of all, start here. I said it was hard. It's not just hard for the dealers. It's actually gotten brutally hard for OEMs. Think about in the last 10 or 15 years, the assault that they've had, you know, between the Carvana CarMax on one side, which has taken share because of affordability. You have on the other side, direct consumer, you with Lucid and with Rivian and with Tesla, right? And then, you know, you have the threat of Chinese manufacturers. Now, I want you to ponder this. Even though, hey, the Chinese manufacturers aren't here, really? They may not be here, but the ghost of them is here. In other words, the influence and impact is here. You don't think Ford and GM is making a decision right now to be able to counter what's coming ultimately? You're not going to keep out Chinese manufacturers. I understand why we would like to. I get it. But here's the thing, until or unless the existing manufacturers figure out how to make a car for $20,000 or $25,000, all that's going to happen is we're going to continue to bifurcate the market. Consider this. In the year 2019, 13 vehicles had MSRPs under $20,000. Consider this. The average household income was just under $80,000. And consider every household income. Every average household income could buy a new car. Every single one. You've lost about 40% of them now. So the average household income's only gone up about 10%, but the average price of a car has gone essentially from $34,000 to $50,000. Why? Because the OEMs, as you know, Jamie, used to throw almost 11% into the pot. So the 39 wasn't 39, it was 34. And the 34 wasn't 34 because you had a 3% interest rate. Now I got a 6% interest rate, a $52,000 car, a 7% manufacturer help plan, which is much less. Meanwhile, the dealers aren't getting that big pile of money below the line either. You know why? Because the OEM spent a bunch of billions of dollars chasing Tesla and chasing requirements that they thought were going to happen for, California's going to mandate only EVs by 2035. Sucker. Every single one of you that did that invested money in plants that you didn't need and making those decisions. Meanwhile, Toyota Japan only does 3% EVs. Did you know that? As a country, 3%.
Mhm.
48% is hybrid. Toyota's looking around going, God, this is going to be a train wreck. And while everybody was making fun of them, who's making fun of them today? Well, meanwhile, everybody else is moonwalking like Michael Jackson, trying to figure out what the heck to do. And then you've got the bad news bears. You got the OEMs in very tough positions. Stellantis, post Tavares, what's really changed? I'm sorry, I don't see it. When you look at Volkswagen and when you look at Nissan, which personally, I think Nissan has great cars. They got 5 cars under $30,000 and can't get out of their own way. Whether it's marketing or whether it's leasing or whether it's great programs, it's a number of things. Maybe it's leadership to some degree. But when you see these shifts, Jaguar, I don't know if Jaguar knows what they want to be right now, right? Volvo's had to reinvent. So you have these OEMs that are scrambling. And by the way, most of them have 1% or less market share.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? You're not even relevant, for God's sakes, right? So I think it's a very interesting time. I think there's a lot of musical chairs. I don't think we've come close to seeing the end of it. And I think what's going to happen was what always happens. On the dealership side, the ones that were dominant, the ones that have great organizations, that have great people, that have great leadership and lean in and aren't afraid to fail, right? Because they got great teams. I think they're going to still come out on top. I think we're going to see a thinning of the herd over the next 5 years, where you're going to see this separation for the stores that didn't lean in on AI. And then on the OEM side, you're going to be really even more the haves and the have-nots, in my humble opinion, because when I think of Nissan having financial, shortcomings, right? They were trying to do a deal with another manufacturer, but they've got Renault that owns part of the company. I don't think Japan's going to bail them out while a French company owns part of it. VW, several people said they had a big shortfall in terms of what the cash they need. So I think these companies have got some hard days in front of them. I really wish them the best. But listen, I think as dealers, all we're asking for is one thing: send me a car my customer wants to buy. I'll take care of the rest. Don't worry. Stop sending me freaking cars you know they don't want to buy and trying to bury me with your mistakes. You're $1 billion company that made a bad decision, and you're trying to shove it on $1 million company. My balance sheet isn't as big as yours. So I think that nonsense needs to end. And frankly, if I was back to being a dealer again, Diana, I remember my older kids went through something called the DARE program, where the police officer came in and said, say no to drugs. Okay. If you're in the wrong OEM, say no to allocation. If it doesn't sell within 90 days, you have to be very careful, because otherwise you're going to bury yourself in floor plan expense, additional advertising expense, and compensation. Part of being a partner is not putting yourself out of business. I'm sorry.
I've been hearing that stores are going to close, that these OEMs are going to close stores in the future. Is that true?
There's been a number of OEMs that have intimated that they intend to close underperforming stores. What they're starting to look at, Diana, is the volume per location. They're looking at some brands that have volume per location that dwarfs theirs, and they're not happy about it. And I understand that. So what they're doing is they're looking at these underperforming stores. Now, you have seen organizations like Mercedes start to take advantage of their ROFRs, the right of first refusal. So if I want to sell my Mercedes store to Jamie and he's got the money, Mercedes has the right. So does all of these franchises to say, no, I don't think so. We're going to sell it to Diana, because Diana has another Mercedes or 2 stores and she's a top performing operator. We don't want to put our franchise in a position where it can suffer. Right. I'm speaking as an ex-dealer, but we have a right that if we're going to have a partnership, the partnership's 2 ways. Part of that is transparency. Part of that's communication. Part of that is sending me the right inventory. But on our side, we have an obligation, right? We have an obligation to hit our sales numbers, to hit our sales efficiencies, and to have great CSI and to deliver great experiences. Nobody disrupts a phenomenal operator. Nobody. Disruptors come in and take care of people that fail to live up to the expectations that their clients have been begging for years. Disruptors do not break through a wall. They walk through an open door left by an incumbent that has failed multiple times to meet the expectations of their clients. So we have a responsibility on the dealership side, but I think that we have to rely on our OEM partners to build the right cars, to have the right programs. And frankly, if you're going to come out with an initiative, please, OEMs, could you please come out with OEM initiatives that are in the best interest of the dealer and the customer and you, and not just you? Because CPO's not it. Loaner programs aren't it. Most of these buying off lease cars, that's not it. These programs all are at the detriment financially of dealers, but to the benefit of the OEM. And I think we need to find a better line there. Because, and by the way, here's another nice thing about going to be 67 years old instead of 27. Okay, I'm not for sale. So I'll say what I say because I'm speaking on behalf of dealers, and that's what I'm advocating for. And if any OEM wants to like jump into a room, I'll be happy to do that. I'll even speak to you for free.
David, I'm curious what you think about the rest of the year for the U.S. new vehicle market. It seems like, to me, like it's at a fork in the road. You know, most analysts were projecting high 15 million number for the year. 15.8 was pretty much the consensus. JD Power was the outlier, projecting 16.3, in part because of all the automakers' ambitious plans for the year. So it's been about a 16 million pace so far this year, despite $4 a gallon gasoline that no one was planning on. What's your gut for the rest of the year? More resiliency from high earners, or will short inventory depress the final tally? What's your crystal ball say?
We always tend to have an upsurge in October, November, and December, especially November, December, as you guys know. And it didn't happen. All 3 months fell short of 2024 performance. We then opened up January at 1 million lower SAR than we did the previous year. February was even. March, we got crushed because the year before was the tariff announcements, and we had an 18 million SAR in March. And so things are starting to level out. First of all, I have to say this. I say it all the time. You got to hand it to dealers. I don't care, who you are, what you do for a living. You better freaking hand it to dealers because they keep throwing things that are so challenging, more headwinds. Yeah, so here, this year, I'll tell you what, I know it's been tough. I know that the last 6 months hasn't been what it was before. I know interest rates haven't gone down meaningfully. Oh, I know the EVs everybody was complaining about. Just for the fun of it, it's been a little bit quiet. So, we're going to go out and just kind of stir things up a bit in the Middle East. And we're going to try to, the Strait of Hormuz is going to get shut down. Gas is going to shoot up to $5, $6 a gallon, by the way, on the West Coast. National average at $4. And we just keep lopping more and more and more. And each time what happens, guys, they still figure it out. They figure it out. Can you, how in the heck are we on pace to do 16 million plus cars this year? It's just unfathomable. But in my estimation, I will say Cox is holding on to their number. I don't know if JD Powers is holding tight to their number. Cox is. And here's something everybody needs to understand. Okay, if we saw an interest rate reduction to 0%, zero, the same car you sold in 19 is $230 more per month. Interest rates don't fix this. Incentives don't fix this. And unless the OEMs start to take on Walmart's rolling back prices initiative, what's going to happen? In other words, if the household incomes are not going to go rocketing up, they're not. Okay. And if the OEMs are not going to reduce prices, they're not. And by the way, there's still many of them trying to figure out this tariff situation, right? Mm-hmm. The tariff situation is still very much in flux. So, and that's not just cars, it's service, it's parts, it's everything. So I think there's a lot of noise out there, guys. I think that if we stayed north of 16, I think that would be beyond impressive. I certainly hope it gets better than that. I just don't see anything when it comes to data that would lead me to believe that we're going to have a spectacular Q4.
We were expecting gas to stay in the threes, and we don't have that environment as we head into the second half, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better in the near term. Do you see us getting back to where the new car business is sort of almost a loss leader to drive, traffic to the service department where you actually make money?
Yeah, and I think what we're going to have to figure out is the last time we had that dynamic, we were selling 17.5 million cars. I want you to
Yeah.
consider this. We had 3.8 to 4.2 million new cars on the ground any given time on average, 3.8 to 4.2. I want you to consider if you're selling 17 million, right? You're selling call it 1.4, 1.5 million cars. And you're sitting there with an 80-day supply of cars. We're sitting today with an 80-day supply of cars with a million fewer cars. And the
Mhm.
OEMs, here's something that's great for an OEM, scary if you're a dealer. They have figured out how to do better financially producing a million fewer cars. They don't have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars in incentives. So, and not only that, they're contenting cars. Why do you think we have 50,000? See, you know what the average invoice is at a Ford store? You know why Ford's down 10% in the first half of the year? Because I go to a Ford store, Diana, and the average invoice is between $55,000 and $60,000. Now, if the average customer is buying a car for 50, how the hell do I play in that playground when my average cost is 55 to 62,000? Stellantis, I walked into Stellantis, one of my Stellantis clients. I thought, when did you become a luxury store? Right? $60,000 invoice? Like, what are you doing? And all of these guys eliminated their low cost inventory. So you got to sit and think about that, guys. Back then, we relied on a program where we had this deal. You guys go make ridiculously irrational moves to overproduce cars that you pay us hundreds of millions of dollars that go below the line that we don't have to pay anybody on. And then we could afford to lose our ass on our operations, but we'll somehow eke out $1.3 million or so thanks for the money below the line. Problem. That money and that profit was coming not from the inside of the store, but externally. So now as the OEMs start to take their ball and go home, and they don't want to spend as much because they don't have as much to spend, I'm sitting here as a dealer going, oh, wait, what happened? All of a sudden, I don't have the volume play dynamic I used to have, which means I don't have the units in operation and service to look forward to, which means I'm not going to get the money below the line I used to, but I still have to spend money on these mausoleum dealerships. I went to Sacramento to visit the Stellantis store that they bought, right? Last December, they sold 110 cars. They got 2 salespeople. There was 3 people on this massive showroom, 3 people and another 3 people back in service, right? They have personnel costs, guys, of 28, 29%, I think, compared to a dealer at 42, 43, 45%. They're not paying floor plan because the 1,000 cars they said was available. I went to the lot. There was 30 cars. That's it. And by the way, I asked the dude that came up. I walked in hot like this, Diana. I'm looking, taking the film. I'm with Brian Kramer. I'm taking film like this. I walked right up to you, right? And this dude walks out and he says, hey, he says, you need help? What can I do for you? And I said, okay for me to film you? Yeah, what can I tell you? I'm thinking, dude, that's transparency. If I walked into a
Yeah.
dealership, franchise store, hot with
Oh,
this,
yeah.
I would have my arm wrestled to the ground and be in the arms of a police officer, probably. So, anyways, Jamie, at the end of the day, I said, how many people come in and say, I want to do business the old way?
I want to make sure the audience is following. This is a Carvana store, right?
This is a store Carvana bought in December 24 in Sacramento, California. So I said, how many people say, no, I don't want this online newfangled nonsense. This interweb isn't going to last. I want to do it the old school way. And I said, how many times does somebody say, I want to come in, I want to drive a car, I want to arm wrestle over price? Yeah, we usually get about one of those a month. I said, wait, time out. So you're telling me you sell 110 cars a month to people who have never seen the car, and And is that true? And he said, yeah. I said, well, when do they drive the car? He looked at me like I'm crazy. He said, when they pick it up. They're buying cars that they've never seen and never drove until they actually bought the car. Am I hearing you right? Yes. I'm looking, and I said, wait. And the cars that you're buying off the street, you never saw those and you never drove them. That's right. I said, maybe you were doing things wrong. I don't know. Right. So I think there's some great learnings out there. And at the end of the day, we need our OEMs to put us in position to be able to do these things. We need our partners, our technology partners, to be the best possible so that we can provide the seamless experience we want, right? With less friction. And we need to be able to rise up as an industry and to be able to say, I am going to develop a culture and a sales experience that is fully transparent. It is honest. It tells you what recon is. It explains finance to you, and it builds a level of trust so that people would be willing to buy a car from you without ever seeing it.
I
So I
love it.
think there's some really big takeaways here. And I think there are dealers already that have taken those lessons, Jamie, and they're winning big time. They're
Yes.
winning
Yes.
big time, right? And we know some, Diana, that are doing that. And there's
Yes.
others that still have their foot buried in 1984, like their Austin Powers, and they are getting dragged, kicking, and screaming. But the world is changing so rapidly. And again, with AI search, you've got organizations like CarEdge that are allowing customers to buy an AI agent to go shop your store and every other store. And so get this. So your AI agent that you're so excited about is answering leads and actually unknowingly communicating with a customer's AI agent. So you have one robot talking to another robot, and you're telling me you're working on building up client retention. How's that going to work? Right? Unless your bot falls in love with my bot and they have a baby bot, right? It's like, think about that. Like, this is a
Yeah.
crazy world. I work so much. My dear wife will tell you, my brain never turns off, and I'm constantly trying to figure out how to solve problems for stores. And you know what? I'm on a mission to empty my head before I'm dead, and however long that is, and to try to help as many stores, as many associates, as many managers, as many OEMs that are interested, as many vendor technology solution providers. And so to me, there's a reason why, I jumped on a plane the day after seeing her in Vegas. I said,
You
I need to
did.
know you. I showed
You
up
did.
the next
You
day.
did. You
I
did.
showed up on William
Yeah.
Street the next day and walked
That's
into
right.
her little office
You
that
did.
day.
At
And
that
we
time.
sat down and we've known each other ever since. Why?
Yeah. 8 years.
Because this person is going to die trying to make sure that these dealers have the tools, the solutions, the technology, and the viable partner that they must have if they're going to succeed in the long term. And so that's why I have massive respect, Diana, for you and for what your team have built. And they will never stop. And it's the last thing I'll say about AI. Buyer beware. You dealers, you are more than ever before are going to get hit from brand new vendors that say, I can do exactly what she can do. Well, 90%. Okay.
Yeah.
You better look under the hood of that freaking
Right.
car
Yeah.
because these guys are sometimes vibe coding, sometimes AI coding, and it's not the same. I have almost 40 developers, including a team of AI people. It's freaking hard. And we've been doing this for years. I've been building software for 20 years, and we've been building this particular project for over 4 years. It's freaking hard. And
Yeah.
anybody that says, oh, yeah, we came up with something, you better watch out because if that company is not in a real building with real employees, right? And real technology and real security and can show you what they're doing, you've got to just watch out because you are not wanting to get the cheaper version. You're wanting to get the best version and the best partner, period. That's who you need to go to war with.
I'm super excited to introduce David to anybody who doesn't know him, obviously, but that would be probably less than 5% of the automotive industry. And David, thank you so much for being on this. Really appreciate you.
We just need another 8 or 10 of you in this industry, and this industry is going to be just fine. I will not worry about it at all. And there's some great organizations out there right now. There's definitely some candidates for the Diana Lee Award out there for doing things the Constellation way. And I think that that's really important because for dealers, we need to know who we're working with, and we need to know we can count on. We need to know they're going to be there 5 and 10 years from now. We need to know that we can iterate with them and grow with them. And we need to know that they do what they say they're going to do. I would just tell dealers it's worth the time to find the right person, the right partner, and the right solution. Anything else, you may save something now. You could pay massively later. And I hope that doesn't happen.
Well said.
That's a great note to end it on. This has been a wonderful conversation. David, thank you so much for joining Diana and me on this episode of Auto Titans.
My pleasure. Wishing you both all the best. Diana, I'll look you up for sure. Let you know next time I'm in town.